Back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you back. And Chris, 2022 has not been kind to equities so far. Gold has done relatively well. It's skyrocketed over the last couple of weeks. We've breached $1,900 today on Monday. We're just below 1,900, but that critical threshold has been breached in the last couple of weeks. Chris, what's next for us?
Sure. Well, I think we're coming into a pretty major super cycle in precious metals. I think we actually started it back in 2019, and this is about a 5-year cycle for gold. And, you know, it has been a very tough year for equities. We've had a massive bull market. I think things are getting a little long in the teeth in terms of the equity side. And when a stock market gets to the late stages, this is when we see commodities tend to come to life. And we're seeing that. We're seeing inflation. We're seeing rates starting to go up. We're seeing commodities start to go up. And that is a really good sign for precious metals. And when you look at gold, it's had a very strong rally over the past month, complete opposite of what the equities markets have done. And we're starting to see signs of life in terms of what the leverage plays around gold are doing. We're starting to see miners in general come to life, including base metal miners are breaking to new highs. Copper miners have started a new uptrend from a big bull flag. Gold miners are the next one to break and pop, and silver is lagging a little bit, but silver miners typically lag, but they play catch up real quick. So all these things, we want to see the equities for precious metals come to life, because that usually tells us the physical metals are going to follow suit. And everything is setting up for, I think, a perfect storm, a nice big rally across the board in gold, silver, and miners. So it's pretty exciting times the last month. Big turning point.
We're going to get to your price projections in just a minute. Now, before we continue, let the audience participate. If you're watching this, comment below on where you think the gold price is headed by the end of the year and in the next couple of years. Now, Chris, before we get to your projections, let's talk about what's going on right now. Geopolitical tensions are flaring in Eastern Europe. Some people I've spoken to have said that geopolitical risks have, in the short term, in the past, spiked gold up higher, but only in the short term. They said that geopolitical tensions are not a persistent force for higher gold prices. In other words, you might get a spike in the short term, but it doesn't persist higher unless you have other macro forces going on. Is that true?
I believe so. I think news, doesn't matter what it is, political, stock news, geopolitical things, it is news, and it does move commodities, and it can be short-lived. But we're definitely seeing, that type of news, which is actually good for metals. I think the underlying trend of commodities coming to life are actually the big driving force. And war, Ukraine, all this, these types of things are going to help boost it. But it's really not going to, I think, hold the prices up. I think it's just kind of get more attention to the precious metal sector, even the crude oil sector, and it just brings more attention to it. But again, anything news-based, if you get a big move based on a news event, it usually gives back those gains pretty quickly. So yeah, I don't take too much news as a real indication of trend or long-term price action for sure.
So let's talk about that. Are you saying that, I'm not suggesting one way or the other, but are you saying that this rally that we're seeing in gold is short-lived?
It's depending on your time frame. So I have a feeling we're going to see precious metals come to life here, and they might do really well for a few months, 2, 3, 4 months. If the U.S. equities market does roll over and go into a much deeper correction, I think we're going to see metals and miners kind of pause and pull back a little bit from there. And then when the stock market finally puts in some type of bottom, I think we're going to see precious metals and miners really take off to the upside. Overall, long term, we are in a major super cycle for gold. I think there's about a 5-year window here where we could see prices really rally. Yeah. But right now, I think we're about to see a very strong move in precious metals for 2 or 3 months. It doesn't mean it's going to go straight up from here and never look back. It might be a great opportunity to lock in some profits. And if the stock market rolls over, there'll be an opportunity to get back in, I think, when gold flags sideways or pulls back a little bit after that.
Let's talk about this 5-year window of price appreciation. I believe you have a cycle chart to show us. So let's talk about the key targets over the next 5 years that you're watching out for.
Yeah. So this was I did this chart in a presentation back in October of 2020, and gold had breached 2000. It started to pull back. And I went into great detail about how there's a blend of this purple line here is a blend of different time cycles. And when you blend them together, it tells you the overall bias. And you're generally looking for cycle lows and cycle highs. And the scenario that set up back in October 2020 was actually very, very similar in terms of the environment, the cycles, to what happened in the 2008, 2009 crisis. And what's unfolding here is very similar. And I had talked about how we're looking at 2022 as the year for gold to put in a bottom. It's probably going to trade sideways and down, which is exactly what it's done along with miners. And here we are into this window where cycles should come to life and we could see a really big move to the upside. So it's really exciting that here we are, 2.5 years or a year and a half later, we're right back into this scenario where finally the cycles, I think, are playing out. The stock market is starting to get very toppy. We're seeing huge money flow out of the large caps. And that is a really good sign for the physical gold market to move higher, along with precious metals and miners that are coming to life. They will become a leader, and they actually have become a leading sector in the past couple of weeks. They're one of the top sectors, and I think they're just getting started to move higher. So this is going back a year and a half, and it's just playing out. So these are very big cycles, and it goes to show how much upside potential there is from this point here.
You know what's interesting, just looking at this chart, it just occurred to me that back in 2008, we had a dip in gold, and then it continued rallying up to the then high in 2011. But you know what? Equities also rallied a lot back then as well. We had a trough in 2009. That was a great financial crisis, and then everything just recovered. So it's not uncommon, I would say, for gold and stocks to rally together in a multi-year cycle, right? That could potentially happen again this time, or is it different?
It totally could. It very much could. In fact, I don't have the chart on me here, but in the same video, I showed the SP 500 and the cycle analysis, and it showed a major cycle low for stocks, October of 2022. So for all we know, we're going to see the stock market crack. We're going to see gold and commodities continue to be a very defensive play. And when the stock market finally hits a major bottom, works itself out later this year, I think we could see a very big rally in equities. And I think there's going to be a lot of fear. And we're going to see a very similar scenario to 2009, where gold stocks rally, gold rallies because people are very nervous, but we see the equities market rally as well. So, I mean, we're really setting up, I think, for a very similar type of move in this market. And this is going to be a really wild year. Last year was a pretty dormant year when it comes to growth stocks. Everything traded sideways or lower. The indexes moved up, just the big large caps. But overall, it was a fairly dormant year. I think 2022 is going to be a big year because precious metals are going to have a big run. Commodities and commodity stocks are going to do well. I think the stock market's going to have some huge percentage swings up and down. So this is going to be a major year of huge volatility across the board, huge opportunity. So it's going to be pretty exciting.
If you're a trader, huge volatility for a trader. I guess if you're an investor, some people don't like that volatility, Chris. But for technical traders like yourself, definitely a lot of opportunities. All right, let's talk about your price targets. So over the next 5 years, where are you expecting gold to go?
Yeah, so over the next 5 years, I expect in the next year or so, we're going to see $2,700 gold. If I actually just go back to the live chart here, you and I have talked about this a few times, just based on the momentum from this multi-year base, this rally to the upside, we can get a couple upside targets. The most conservative target is using Fibonacci extension from these levels, from where it started this strong run, created a bull flag. And if we were to just look higher to where that's going, we're looking at 2,600. If we wanted to go to the more extreme level, we could go down here, and that pulls us up to that 2,700. So that's where I think we could see gold pop very quickly. Over the next 12 months, we could see it scream up to 2,700. And I think we'll see silver do very well, see miners do well. When you look out longer term, I think we're looking over the next 4 or 5 years, I think we could see gold work its way up to 3,400, and then potentially, depending how things unfold in the economy in the world, it could have a huge blow off move where it spikes up to like 7,400, which is kind of where the momentum will most likely stall out, have a sharp reversal. But that's looking way out. When we look at the price of gold here, you can see that he's got this multi-year, I mean, a 10, 12 year